Imagine you're walking down a path. As you move forward, you notice that the path splits not only twice, but a finite yet uncountable number of times. Each path leads to a different road and ends, while others intersect. You yourself don't have any idea where it ends. However, you do know that you must reach an end, and following a path will get you to that end somehow. The caveat of this scenario is that each path at least tells you how they generally go, in a form of a tip written on a signboard. So, will you actually take the tips, or will you go screw the rules? I have random variables. It's pretty safe to say that you'll heed at least some of the tips. It is in our nature, after all, that we make sense of whatever the hell is happening around us. That is what makes us rational. By this point, you may have already guessed what the allegory alludes to. If you haven't, you dingus, it depicts life, your natural lifespan, and the many choices you make as you go down through it. These choices dictate how you can morally go through life, and morally questioning stuff is what ethics genuinely does. And in order to do that, ethics has a lot of tools to use. At the moment, we will be talking about those tools to make going down this path easier. Ethics has these tools called ethical framework or ethical tools or theories. These are the tools that you will use to go down this allegorical path. You use these tools to decide whether going down this path is worth it morally or not. You genuinely decide which one is which. It is more unusual to say that you would relatively act morally towards others than to say that you will act like an ass towards others. That is to say, one would strive to be moral towards everyone else because it benefits them. After all, everyone in their own right is a moral agent. So in order to get towards the end that you would want, i.e. the moral end, a rational agent such as yourself has to use ethical tools. However, no single ethical tool is worth the use because each one of them has different ifs, different buts, and different contexts where they can be applied. That is one of the reasons why one must study these ethical tools. And that is what we're going to do today. For the sake of the video, we will be talking about the following ethical concepts: natural law, utilitarianism, deontology, virtue ethics, and contractarianism. How these theories help in their own way, lead you down the aforementioned paths, how they don't help, and finally how they can help each other help you go down the helpful path. So let's start with natural law. What now? Oh, okay. Well, ain't that an ethical wisp? Hold your urge to swat it. I know I am. So you're here anyways, why don't you explain what it works for?
Natural law focuses morality in a lens of objectivity. It considers moral good in the basis of having the so-called human nature, or the conscience. It's an easily explained framework as, unlike others, it doesn't have a rigid set of banners. It assumes that within everyone exists a natural compass towards good, an assumption towards the human conscience, and not the sole emotional level that everyone just wants. To put it in simpler words, it assumes that naturally individuals have imprinted means to go towards a natural inclination, which is good in itself.
So, as the Wisp said, this might be the easiest framework to study because it assumes that we as humans have natural feeling to know good and the natural inclination to go for that good. However, to say that everyone has the same objective definition of good is kind of, well, unrealistic. You can go away now. Yes. Okay. Good can be defined in different spheres. However, in those same spheres, something that can be known as good in one sphere can be bad in the other. Natural philosophy also relies on human subjectivity and human natural laws. Human natural laws can be varied and can be subjective in nature whenever it's expected to be applied in a natural environment. The natural fallacy is what stems from the sole reliance in the natural law, as goodness is unanalyzable and cannot be defined by any natural means alone. Next, onto utilitarianism.
Can I explain this?
Oh, another one? Well, if that makes my job easier, then go knock yourself out.
Utilitarianism is a framework that focuses on the good of the many. It holds everyone in equal value and will judge a moral act on how much it can value the whole. It's not out of the ordinary for humans to count everyone within their community when showered with good blessings. Hence, utilitarianism extends that by applying it to moral decisions as well. It puts value in impartiality and the common good more than any other ethical framework.
Utilitarianism is the greatness for all. It focuses on what brings the most good for the most amount of people. It's a universal concept that everyone should be able to understand and get behind on. However, it also has holes. One of which is that it assumes everyone to follow the same moral code as one does. Or another one is the fact that it creates an unrealistic representation of society by solely focusing on happiness. Moving on to Kantian ethics, or as the common word, deontology. Oh, mothering heck. What is it now? Again. Okay.
The framework with the least amount of consideration and a focus on autonomy, deontology looks into duty as a measure of moral actions. Deontology also explores the role of higher personal responsibility as it urges those who use it to follow the categorical imperative. Also, unlike the prior two frameworks, it creates a moral absolute that cannot be aggregated by subjectivism, and it emphasizes the value of every single person.
Anyways, deontology tackles the morality as an objective guide towards goodness. It has a set of rules to follow and ways to test actions if one is faced on ethical problems. However, the focus on objectivity and straight-laced approach of it doesn't bode well in reality, as sometimes it misses smaller details that can be overall helpful to the bigger picture. There's also a slight problem with this framework, as it explores autonomy and understanding of the categorical imperative as a guide to slowly turn deontology into a subjective, what is my duty kind of question. Not everyone has the same line of duty, hence it turns into a subjective nature which kind of counteracts its objective truths. We all have duties in life, but not everyone has the same duty. Thus, it becomes muddled up if we focus on deontology alone, and that is why we... What is it this time? Contractarianism. Okay, fine. Get it over with.
Contractarianism is kinda like deontology, that it follows a set of rules. But also like utilitarianism, it holds the society as the standard end goal of morality. This is due to two factors. Within contractarian ethics, society is the end goal that secures to us as much benefit as possible, and those who contradict society will not receive its benefits. Thus, within contractarianism, one is considered moral if they follow the contract, and as a means of reciprocity, the contract provides them with benefits that stave off the state of nature, as discussed.
Contractarianism is good. For proof of that, you can look into our society. However, if you think focusing on contractarianism alone is good in itself, you're wrong. And if you just got that, you're kind of slow, because that's our shtick at the moment. Contractarianism assumes quite a number of things. Two of these are that individuals are social in nature and society is equal in nature. Going down the line, not everyone receives equal amounts of benefit, and some work harder to receive that same amount of benefit as everyone else. Contractarianism assumes that everyone gets the same benefit, however, in reality, some get lesser and some work harder to get the same amount. If we would base our ethics on contractarianism leaning alone, we may be blinded to the values of the benefits we get compared to the values that others get. Hence, we pay more to be good compared to others who pay less to receive the same amount as we do. That in itself is inequality, which is one of the crux of contractarianism. Another thing is that society as itself is unequal, and contractarianism alone, when it's faced with inequality, gives leeway into morality. So if you think you are unequal towards others, contractarianism kind of gives you leeway to say, hey, work against the morals of those who are unequal. Contractarianism, i.e., is again subjective in nature. Okay, so according to the script, there is one more left. So come on, get it over with, get it over with. Virtue ethics is next. So come get it over with.
Virtue ethics is the framework that follows the most subjective sense of morality as possible. It allows autonomy of the rules as long as an individual can give value to the collective happiness of human beings and to act accordingly to our innermost yet rational thoughts. Within this framework, working to an end goal is to be moral as long as the goal is to benefit the individual and other individuals at no cost.
For virtue ethics, its freedom and subjectivity is its own downfall. There is no definitive answer to a single moral dilemma or an answer to what virtue truly is. It also lacks the concern to do the right or wrong and is only focused on being or developing characteristic. As we've discussed the concept of ethical framework and what they may all fall flat. It dawns on us that no single framework is a way to go down this allegorical path we're taking. It is simple to rely on a single framework alone, however, it will not lead you down the truly moral path. One cannot rely on a single framework as a touch and go kind of scenario, and we must all work hard to use every bit of these frameworks. We have to use every one of these because it's an allegorical tool that we seemingly need to use. Studying these tools give us what it means to use each other in their context and situation where they fit the most important. So to conclude, at one point, an individual can use naturalist morality, while the next, they can use the categorical imperative to say, yes, that is the moral path we must go through. This is not being inconsistent in one's view. This is a simple mean to live as moral as possible. Realistically, we've discussed that there is no single framework to follow. However, with the understanding of these frameworks, one opens a new path towards the end of their goals. They can use whatever tool they see fit in a context if they study it. That is what is called synthesis. Synthesis is the end goal of studying these theoretical frameworks. As akin to a carpenter having multiple tools, one must use both the hammer and the saw because it is available to them. Synthesis is the natural end goal of these frameworks. No one man can say that they are correct in every context with just a single synthesis, but everyone can say that they have their own synthesis to fit their own relative context. With the different paths of our allegory, we can end in different goals. However, we can decide that those goals are completely moral if we follow these theoretical frameworks of ethics. After all, synthesis of these frameworks is the end goal of ethics because it just wants us to live morally. And moral in itself is subjective in value depending on the context. Henceforth, you can just mix and match different theoretical concepts if you want to be moral in the end. So, as you go down the path, let us include every bit of tool we have so that we can at least be at peace that we will end in the goal that is most moral compared to the others. Don't just, screw the rules. There are some rules in society that we must follow in order to get as much stuff as we want. That in itself is one of the ethical claims, and that in itself fits in today's context. Another context may fit, but as long as everything goes by, you're genuinely good. So, that will be all for now, I think, because I'm hearing more wisp coming down the path.